Why is there such a housing crisis in First Nations? All housing options need to be available to their community members. Housing situation on First Nations is pretty complex, and that's why you have so many organizations trying to address that problem.
There's a lot of different loopholes and struggles that people have in order to get housing on reserve. The First Nations Market Housing Fund essentially gives resources and tools to First Nations communities and helps them acquire housing in their communities with their people.
The First Nation Market Housing Fund helps members jump the line, so to speak, between a social house and home ownership.
It acts as an intermediary. It helps bridge the gap between the lenders, the First Nations, and the members.
It's owning your own home and having pride and ownership of owning a home on reserve that is yours.
There's a lot of land, but there's a lack of housing. The lack of housing often drives people away from the community, which in the long run diminishes the culture and the tradition. The fund's mission to help reconnect that culture is very important for Canada overall as a country.
The challenges with building any home or doing any renovations to housing in a First Nation community ultimately has been impacted by the Indian Act. So the Indian Act all those years ago didn't allow us to access financial mechanisms as mainstream Canada would.
It's really important that funding continues, but if you don't have an economic base, it's very difficult to build cultural programs, build language programs, making sure that your community has access to things outside of whatever the Indian Act is going to support.
It's our organization that's coming up with solutions to help our own people. So that's the whole idea behind reconciliation. It's not government policymakers in Ottawa coming up for this solution. It's an Indigenous-led organization with connections to communities.
Housing in First Nation communities is central. Everything stems from housing. Quality of education, your health, your social, the lands. The First Nation Market Housing Fund program that is available through our community has really improved the quality of housing, specifically for our family in the terms of comfort, sustainability, energy efficiencies, and safety and security, which all First Nation housing should be striving for.
We moved to my community. I came here for a job and there was no housing available. But I wanted to move home to start a family, and it was chaos. It was like we were building a house, we were having a baby, we were doing it all. The fund gave me opportunity to build a bigger home with more bedrooms and a more sustainable home. Sustainability is important to us as Indigenous people. We're here for the land, we're here to protect the water for future generations so that they have access to the land and water, way down after my time is done here.
So Bingwiniashi Sandpoint was an existing community back in the middle of the 20th century. What happened in the 20th century was a series of floods on Lake Nipigon and diversions.
Federal government took it from the community, flooded the lake, burnt the housing down, displaced our community.
Essentially they fought, got the land back. Just recently, I think 2010 is when they first got the land back, and we've been developing it ever since. The fund has been instrumental in ensuring that BNA had the building blocks in place for its development. Without the support of our building blocks to ensure that we had the right pieces in place prior to proceeding with our development, we would not be where we are today.
It's now an option for those people that left their communities because of lack of housing to return back to those communities.
We had one of our elders walk into one of the duplexes, and the duplex is one of the two homes that were first built in 2018, 2019. The elder, I do believe is Lawrence Ishquega, walked in and basically said, I never thought in my lifetime that I would ever walk into a house in my community. It was gut-wrenching, it was very heartwarming. With the lumber that we're producing here, we're building homes down in our community, which brings more of our community members home.
The fund's able to really work directly with members on a day-to-day basis to make sure that they have the information that they need to make the right decisions.
Right now we're working with about 40 to 42% of First Nations in Canada. And one of the things that I told my board when I took leadership of this organization is why isn't that 80%? I think in the past our focus wasn't broad enough to the services we could provide to support home ownership on reserve. We want to make sure that we are able to serve a growing number of First Nation communities and have them get excited about working with the fund, because a lot of changes are underway.
I've always dreamed of coming back to my community and to come back to the land. There's no place I'd rather be.
I'd love to see more community members be able to access this type of funding. If you're thinking about building, just reach out to the Housing Market Fund, reach out to Public Works here in our community and see how you can access this fund and build the home that you need or want for yourself and your family.
Once things start developing down here, once there's industry, once there's stores, jobs, I'm a strong believer that our community members are going to want to come home.